What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Leadstar Piano. Today, I'm going to be giving you 6 different practice tips to help you play the piano as fast as possible, to help you improve at the piano as fast as possible, so that you can play all the songs that you love at a competent level. And all of these tips can apply to anyone. Doesn't matter if you're brand new at the piano, doesn't matter if you have some kind of playing experience, whatever it is. I promise you that if you implement all 6 or even some of these tips, you are going to be able to learn the piano a lot faster and play things that you want to play. And to be clear, these aren't going to make you a Beethoven or a Mozart or a long overnight. Nobody can do that, unfortunately. What these tips will do for you is they'll take your baseline talent level plus your experience and use that to propel you forward faster. So without further ado, point number 1 is you should be practicing the piano painfully slow. Way too much, way too often, people will try to play a full piece from start to finish, and they'll try to play it at tempo first time looking at it. They'll basically try to sight read the whole piece, and they'll just keep trying to play the whole thing. They'll make 25 different mistakes along the way, and then they'll go back to the beginning, make 25 different mistakes, and then they'll get to their problem measure, go back to the beginning, and it's just a never-ending cycle. So what you want to do instead is you want to practice so painfully slow that it doesn't even sound like music. I made a whole video about this. You can search painfully slow on the channel for more details. But you want to practice so slowly that it doesn't even sound like music, so slowly that you're consciously thinking and aware of every single note that you're hitting, so that it is impossible, literally impossible for you to hit the wrong note, because that's how slow you're going. And what's going to happen is once you do this often enough and you're only playing the right notes every single time with the correct fingering every single time, your brain is going to be able to absorb what you want to do much faster. It's like if you're a business owner or you're a manager, maybe at your company where you work, and you get a new employee and you train the employee on a single task and you show them 25 different ways to do it. When the times come for that employee to perform that task, they're going to be confused. They're not going to know which method you want them to use because you showed them 25 different ways to do the same exact thing. When you compare that to if you have a new employee and you show them one way to do a specific task, it's going to be very clear to understand. They're going to know exactly what you want them to do, and they're going to be able to achieve the result that is desired. Same thing when you're learning the piano. If you practice painfully slow and you hit every note correctly every single time, and you do that for 10 times in a row, your brain understands what you want it to do, and it understands your hand coordination, your muscle coordination. Everything will be lined up. And what's going to happen is you're going to be able to learn that piece a lot faster and be able to play the right notes a lot faster. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is you want to learn the basics of music theory. So if you want to learn the piano fast, you have to learn at least the basics. Things like scales, arpeggios, uh, music theory, like intervals. What's a perfect fifth? What's a perfect sixth? What's a half step? What's a whole step? Things like that. Very basic level music theory, chords. What's a triad? How is a major chord constructed? How is a minor chord constructed? What are the differences? Things like that. All of those basic music theory terms you should know. And you want to know them because what's going to happen is you're going to start to see patterns in music. So if you know that a C major chord has the notes C, E, and G, and you see C, E, and G in your left hand on some sheet music, you know you're going to be playing a C major chord. And now what's going to happen is you're not thinking about that as 3 individual notes. You're not thinking, okay, I have to play a C in my left hand, then I have to play an E, then I have to play a G. Now what you're thinking is, if you know the basics of music theory, you're saying, okay, I'm playing C major. You know C major, you know what fingers to use for C major, you know how to play C major, you're good to go. So you kind of zoom out a little bit. You're not looking at such a micro level, and you're zooming out and looking at the whole picture. And when you do that, it's less of a burden for your brain, less of a burden for your mind, and you can focus on a lot of other things. That's one reason. Another reason is when you're practicing your scales and you're practicing your arpeggios as well, you are practicing a lot of different songs, because all songs, pretty much all songs, use arpeggios. All songs are in a specific key, right? So if you know how to play the scale that correlates to the key that the song is in, then you already know how to move about. You already know what notes are going to be most commonly played. You're already going to know what the chords are in those notes, and you're going to be able to know what fingers to use for each of those notes. So practicing scales, super important. Understanding scales, how they're constructed, again, how chords are constructed, basic music theory terms will help you play the piano a lot faster. Point number 3 is you need to be consistent. Sounds very simple. It sounds easy, but it's not. I think we can all understand that there has been something in your life, you started out, you wanted to be consistent with it, you wanted to do it daily, let's say, and maybe you get a week into it, a month into it, and you stopped. So be consistent. We know it's helpful. We know it's beneficial. We know it's simple to understand. It's not always simple to actually implement, but you need to be consistent if you want to improve fast, right? And I would try to do daily practice. If you're a little bit more serious about the piano and you do want to get better as fast as humanly possible for you, then you need to practice every single day. It doesn't have to be 3 hours per day or 6 hours per day. Something small like 20 minutes is fine. If you can practice 20 minutes per day, then you are going to be in a really good spot to be able to learn piano a lot faster. Some things that you can do to help with your consistency. Maybe you've tried to play piano every day before in the past and you weren't able to do it. Some things that you can do is, one, you can try to get up earlier. So if you have work at 9 a.m., maybe you can play the piano at 7, just for 20 minutes, 7 a.m., and now your piano practice is done for the day. It doesn't matter what happens at work. It doesn't matter what obligations you have to do after work. It doesn't matter because you already got your piano practice in early in the morning. And especially if you have a digital piano like I do behind me, then you just put your headphones on. You're not disturbing anybody. If you live with other people or you have neighbors, they can do their own thing. Another thing that can help you with your consistency is if you have a simple checkbox. So it can be a physical piece of paper, like a calendar. You can check off every single day that you practice. You can also just use an app on your phone. That's what I do. I use something called Daily Tracker. It's an app that can show you that will track things for you, like the name implies, as my cat tears up my pants. But the Daily Tracker will help you with staying consistent because you can put in how often you practiced, how much you practiced for that day, and it will tally everything for you. So it will show you your weekly totals, your daily totals, your monthly totals, and your yearly totals. And what's really cool is when you've been playing for, let's say, a year, and you can go back and you can look at every single day of the year, and you can see what day you practiced on and how much you practiced for that day. And it keeps a grand total. So you can actually track the number of hours that you played for the year, for the month, whatever. So super beneficial. That app is called Daily Tracker. You can also just do it physically if you just want to check off a box every day. And you can practice early in the morning as well. But definitely those two things can help you stay consistent. Point number 4. If you want to be able to play piano faster, you need to be able to play things that you enjoy. So another simple one to understand, not always as easy to implement. But if you don't like playing classical music and you're playing classical music, then you're not going to improve as fast as if you're doing something that you enjoy. And as human beings, we tend to enjoy things that we are good at, right? So if you're good at ear training, you're good at listening to a song and playing it back, or if you're really good at sight reading music, then you're probably going to tend to do more of those things. And you want to use your natural talent. So if you are more talented to play rock and roll music, or you're more talented to play jazz music, you just have a better feel for it and it comes more easily to you than something like classical music, then maybe the majority of the time should be focused on what you're good at so that you can make the most amount of progress in the least amount of time. That's not to say to completely avoid all the things that you're bad at and avoid all the things that need to be improved. But if you want to get better as fast as possible, then use your baseline talent. Use what you already have, use what you're already good at, and just keep building off of that. Keep improving what you're already good at so that you can make the most gains in the least amount of time possible. And that's what this video is all about. That's what I'm trying to help you with. Point number 5, understand that it's going to take time. So even though this whole thing is about playing piano fast, it's about playing piano the way you want to, at the level you want to, as fast as possible, understand that it is going to take time. And this is a mental piece. This is mentally so that you don't beat yourself up, so that you don't expect within 2 weeks' time you're playing Moonlight Sonata third movement, right? It's not like you're a brand new piano player. 2 weeks later, you're playing Moonlight Sonata third movement perfectly. That's not going to happen unless you're a savant, maybe, or some kind of extremely talented person. But for the majority, that's not going to happen. And you need to understand getting to the level that you want, depending on how ambitious you are, depending on what your goals are for the piano. It might be taking you years to actually reach that level. And that's fine, because if it takes years to reach an extremely competent level, then that's still the fastest way that you could have reached it, right? So I might say it takes you 5 years to get really, really good at the piano. And you might think, well, 5 years, that doesn't sound too fast. It's not very speedy. But if you take a second back and you think about, well, if you're brand new at the piano and in 5 years' time you want to play Moonlight Sonata third movement and you have no experience starting today, and in 5 years' time you hit your goal, you can play Moonlight Sonata third movement perfectly. That's pretty damn fast. That's pretty fast, and that's pretty impressive, right? So even though it takes 5 years, that's not saying that that's slow. That is still the fastest time that you could have done that given your abilities. So there's not a knock on anybody. It's just the way it is. And that's still fast. As long as you're doing everything else I told you up to this point, then that's the fastest you possibly could have played that. And that's not a bad thing. It's still fast, even if it takes you years to get to that goal. Point number 6 is piano should be an addition to your life, not a chore. So I'm saying this because if piano is starting to drag on you, if you're starting to feel like it's more of a chore and you set a goal to practice every day and now you don't want to practice every day and you're kind of done with it. If that's the way you're feeling, then you're not going to improve fast. Again, this comes back to doing what you enjoy. If we're doing what we enjoy, we tend to make progress a lot faster. If we do something because we feel like we have to, or we're doing something because we're told we have to do something, then progress tends to become a lot slower. So if piano practicing feels like a chore, understand that we need to fix that mentality if your goal is to still play the piano in the future. If you're just deciding that, you know what, you're done with the piano, you're quitting, you're walking away, that's fine. But if you know deep down that you want to continue to play the piano and you're kind of just in a slope, right? You're in kind of a downward slope and you just don't have the motivation to practice, then we need to take a step back and we need to say, how can we make piano feel less like a chore? One thing you can do is you can always end on a high note, right? So ending on a high note is ending your practice sessions with something that you actually enjoy doing. So if it's improvising, if it's writing a song, if it's trying to learn a piece by ear, if it's just playing songs that you already know, ending your practice sessions on a high note with the last 5 or 10 minutes will help you to feel like piano is fun and it's enjoyable and less like a chore. And when the piano feels fun and enjoyable and less like a chore, then you're going to be likely to be much more consistent and you're going to be wanting to practice more and wanting to stay consistent with your practice routine. So those are the 6 tips. Just to recap again, these are tips to help you play the piano as fast as possible. Point number 1 is you don't want to rush. You want to practice painfully slow. Make sure all the notes that you're playing is correct and you're not practicing 25 different ways. Pick one way, play that 25 times, and you'll learn the piece a lot faster. Point number 2, learn the basics. Learn the basics of music theory, scales, arpeggios, chords, all of that stuff, so that you can understand what is happening and that you can have practice with certain keys so that you can learn songs faster. Point number 3, be consistent. Make sure you show up. If you don't practice, you're not going to be better. I don't have to explain that much more. Point number 4, always make sure that you're having fun and playing what you want. Again, use your talents that you already have. Work on the things that you need to work on that need improvement, but also make sure you work on things that you're already good at so you can capitalize on your talents and capitalize on your strengths and get better faster. Point number 5, understand that no matter what you do, it's going to take time. So even if you can play a goal piece that you have in 5 years, that's still really impressive. That's still something you should be proud of. And it's something that is still fast, right? If you can play a really tough piece that you've been wanting to play in 5 years, from the beginning level to that, that's impressive. That's still fast, and you should be proud of that. Last point, point number 6, is piano should be an addition to your life, not a chore, right? So you should be having fun with the piano. That's where ending on a high note can be useful. Is the last 5 or 10 minutes playing what you want to play so that you can be happy with your practice session. The last thing your brain has that can marinate on is something positive when it comes to the piano, so that you'll be more likely to come back the next day, be more consistent, and get better faster. With all that said, I do have 34 more essential tips completely for free. All you have to do to get that free guide is click on the link below. I am offering lessons right now via Zoom, so if you want to take it a step further, if you want to get better even faster, then a teacher can help. I can help you with that. Send me an email at the link below. We'll set up a day and a time that works best for you. My name is Josh LaFleur with Late Start Piano.